Today I have an amazing treat for everybody. It is Adam Lewis Waka. Hi, Adam. How are you?
I'm really good. You're really looking forward to this interview, meeting, catch up. It's brilliant. Yeah.
This is going to be amazing. So, Adam, can you please tell everybody what is it that you do right now and who you help right now?
I help fellow authors, coaches, and speakers land their TEDx talk in 90 days to skyrocket their impact through the Talk Accelerator method. And that, I love it. That's what I'm all about. I'm a podcaster. And that's why I say fellow authors, coaches, and speakers, because that's basically me. So I know we met at Podfest where I was speaking about a similar topic. So that's it, really. That's what I'm all about. But as we're going to dig into, there's, I didn't grow up thinking that's what I wanted to do. There's many twists and turns, and interesting, always evolving, always a work in progress. But no, that's what I've been doing for quite a few years. I absolutely love it.
We're gonna talk about that because I know that every single person listening, we have an audience thick and packed with coaches, and I know that every single one of them has on their dream list. In fact, if I showed you my vision board right now, TEDx is on my vision board. So this is a topic that I know everybody cares a lot about, but what I care about right now is how you got here. And your story is, I can't even imagine what it must have been like to have been an Olympic contender back in the 2000s. So let's start there. How did you become an athlete?
So growing up, I was, as long as I can remember, I was just kind of obsessed with the Olympics, that whole ethos of, just mind, body, and spirit, the whole Olympic ideal. I loved watching the Olympics, just seeing all these random events.
Was there a particular sport that you loved watching?
I love track and field, or athletics, as most of the world calls it. But yeah, I love the track and field. Basketball as well. That was my first love, basketball. I was in the wrong country, obviously growing up in England. Everyone, basketball was definitely a lower class sport there. It's not like, I had to convince friends to play on the team, to make a team at my school. But yeah, I loved it. Unfortunately, everyone told me I was too short for basketball. Unfortunately, I bought into that a little bit, because I didn't know. You're only young, and even well-wishers are like, "Oh, you're basketball. Are you a bit short for that?" And so eventually something, oh, I guess I am. I guess I do something else a bit more. So,
but that's kind of funny because you end up in pole vaulting, and that you require height for that too. So that didn't stop you there.
Well, I suppose there's a few key things. What I like about pole vault as well is you need a little bit of the X factor. Yeah, it's like most sports. It's handy if you're 7 foot or 6'8", and you've got them levers. It's mechanics that, if you get a 6'8" guy and a 5'8" guy, and they're both exactly the same skill wise, one's going to have an advantage in that sort of sense. But in terms of the mental side of pole vault, it just doesn't work out that you can get someone and say, right, technically you should be able to do a certain height based on how fast you can sprint and how long your levers are, because it's all physics and mechanics. Because you need to be, I wouldn't say mental, but you need to have a very kind of, you need to commit, and it takes a certain type of person to pole vault, which makes it a good thing when when you are in that group, that exclusive little group. It's the same group of people going around. It's quite a tight-knit community, and it attracts a certain type of person. So it was good fun competing, because a lot of times, you're at a competition the whole day, and your actual pole vault, each vault might take 10 seconds from start to finish. The rest of the time you're warming up, you're hanging out with the other pole vaulters. It's a good vibe.
So August 2008, tell us what happened at the UK Challenge finals.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm not trying to paint the picture that I was like top ranked and like everyone's saying this is going to happen. Like, I was definitely always the underdog in most situations, which I it's a good situation to be in. It means you're pushing yourself, stretch yourself. So this UK Challenge final was built up of like the top 10 in the UK based on, their performance that year and how many competitions, and you build up points and stuff. So I got into that competition, which was a good result for me. So, the conditions were like horizontal rain. It was British summertime. So it was downpour. And then on top of that, it was, the last 10 meters, and I didn't say this when I spoke at the event you saw, but the last 10 meters of the run up were flooded. And so, you know, in those conditions, it was like, so I think one or two like pretty sensible people or pole vaulters pulled out just because it was too dangerous. And then, you know, obviously those who were competing were you know, struggling in these conditions. So it really leveled the playing field. So yeah, I think I had my first run through, which, you know, I didn't get off the ground because conditions weren't right. And that's kind of that inbuilt kind of self-preservation. If it doesn't feel right, you just, even if you're trying to take off, you don't. So I'm walking back, and the stadium, the stand is packed right close to where the pole vault is. And I heard one of the some guy say to another guy, like, he's done, he won't take off again. And then again, it's like, you shouldn't let other people affect you. There's a clear case of this, because then my mentality was like, oh, I'll show him. I'm not done. The clock's counting down. You know, your hands are slipping. There was just a lot of things to kind of, pole vault is quite dangerous anyway, but there's a lot of things to take into account, of like the grip, you're soaked, the block puddle. So I run in, I run hard, I run fast, you know, the clock's counting down, go to plant. And then, yeah, it didn't feel right. And I kind of still tried to go for it. I got a bit too close. And, if you know, spikes that you use, there's only spikes in the ball of the foot. There's nothing in the heel. So my heel hit down first, and it just slid in the puddle. And yeah, and that's when I dislocated knee, tore the ACL, tore the all the meniscus cartilage off the bone. I actually bruised the bone ends from the impact, and I'd never had any knee problems. So yeah, that's when my life changed, but just not how I was hoping, because that was basically Olympic qualification. It was Olympic year, you know. So yeah, and it was almost out of body experience, because when I like crumpled, and like I felt like my knee had been like snapped, or leg had been snapped the wrong way. I thought it was going to be an open fracture, and I just remember screaming, and I remember trying to shut up, because there was like extended family members who'd never seen me pole vault my entire life, but this was a big competition, so they'd all come out of the woodwork. And like, so I remember people saying, "Isn't this a bit dangerous?" I'm like, "No, it's fine." And that's their experience of watching me pole vault, and I couldn't shut up, and it was, yeah, it was horrible. But yeah, talking about it makes it better. I didn't watch any athletics for years afterwards. You know, we've even got it on video somewhere. You know, and it's you know, it doesn't look as dramatic as it might sound, but you hear the first scream, which is the worst bit. So yeah, so that's that. And then it just that's the fork in the road for me. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today if that hadn't have happened. I'd be definitely doing something else, or a different stage in this journey for sure. But that kind of just changed everything.
You mentioned in the TED Talk that after, like, for a couple of years after that event, you saw yourself getting depressed, going through rehab, and starting to feel ashamed because you were feeling depressed. Like, hey, this is not how, you know, winners act. This is not what winners do. I would love it if you could kind of illustrate for us what those couple of years were like, and what was the tipping point that made you go, I think I need to do something different to get out of this funk.
Yeah. So initially, obviously it's a bad one, but the athlete mentality, you always have injuries. So initially it was like, how quick can I get back? Like, I'm the best shape of my life. I'm really, you know, starting to fulfill my potential. I'd cleared some heights that year, like by a huge amount. So there was a lot in the tank. There was like a good couple of personal bests. I could see that were coming, and I had my eyes set on the Irish record as well. That was achievable, I believe. So it was like, how quick can I get back? And it was through this period of, like, you know, probably about a year, you know, I had a very positive outlook on it, on the surface especially, but obviously it's chipping away at you. It's like, you know, when you've initially, they didn't realize how bad the knee was. There's a load of other details which I won't go into, but basically, when you obviously have an operation, you're kind of back to square one. And so, you know, about a year down the line, and the surgeon saying to me, you've got to stop thinking about how quick you can get back and think about playing basic sports with your kids. And as I say, at that stage, I didn't have any kids, and it was a reality check. And I didn't have any kids in the way that I was aware of. I didn't know one was pregnant, that I was aware of. And then it was like, okay, this is the, you know, there's a certain point where it's like, yeah, you can be relentless, and, you know, you got to be to get something like the Olympics, but also you've got to be a realist.
Can you indulge me and tell me where the idea for Awaken Your Alpha come from? I went back and the earliest reference I could find was from 2014, right? Which is right when the podcast started. Can you tell us like how that came about?
Yeah. So obviously I had to, awaken my alpha, like, kind of master and reclaim my identity and step up. And just, this is my life's biggest adversity. And, that's what I encourage other people. Don't belittle the biggest challenge you've gone through in your life just because it's not as big as someone else next to you. And that's what I did. and that made it worse than it had to be. So it was the idea of just, just daily, just certain things. And again, it's not going to happen instantly. If you're really struggling, there's certain things and habits and tactics to do and processes are more important on the days you're struggling. So even if that's just turn up that day, but there's certain things, if you consistently do them, will pull you out of it. You just need to stay in the fight. So I had to awaken my alpha, as I later termed it. And I co-authored a book in 2013 called The New Rules of Success. And I didn't get the mix of people. It didn't make logical sense to me. A 60-year-old dentist from South Africa, a 30-something-year-old teacher from England. And it was just a mix of people. And then when I met these authors, there was a kind of an award ceremony, and I met these authors and we had these conversations that I hadn't really had before. Because, I'm from a little place in England, Crawley. And, that's when I had them conversations and I realized, success leaves clues. And now I get where in the same book in terms of their mindset in a completely different context, how they approached their profession or their field or their background. I was like, oh, I like this. I'm like, me personally, I hadn't heard enough conversations like that. And that's when I instantly had the idea for the book first.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, I'm not a known author who can afford to sit in a cabin researching his book for 4 years. So I know I'll start the podcast as an elaborate research project for the book. So that's how they started. And then so I started the podcast, Awaken Your Alpha. And again, it was imperfect action. I didn't know exactly what that meant. I just kind of that broad sort of description I did there, but I just started. And then at a certain point, I'm like, again, this is very easy to go, I just need to get one more interview. I need another 100 interviews. I can be better. It can be better. At a certain point, I just had to draw the line and go like, okay, 300 interviews. I think I got enough. Like, stop making excuses. So then obviously before that, I did obviously moved to America and landed my TEDx talk, Awaken Your Alpha, how to rise up, basically.
Okay, wait.
Yeah, that's a whole other story, I know.
This is where we pause and just like, let's focus our attention on TED, right? Many of us who are listening, we've started the podcast, right? We've had hundreds of episodes. Mm-hmm. We are thinking maybe one day we'll write a book. Maybe we've started writing a book. Maybe we want to be on TEDx. What do you think? First of all, just answer me this. What made this so possible for you? Like if you see other people who are trying to do this, right? And still not getting there. And you're like, no, I'm starting the podcast, 300 episodes in, stop making excuses, go and start writing my book. I'm going to get on TEDx. Many people would stop themselves from even thinking about TEDx if they haven't written the book, which is what they've been wanting.
Oh, I hear all the excuses. Yeah, right? People will have it. That's why I said
one has to happen before the other. And
life doesn't work like that. Yeah.
Tell me what made you go, I haven't written the book yet. I need to get on TEDx. And then the book didn't come until like 2 years after TEDx. So tell me what was going on in your mind.
No. So again, and this is not like, this is how you should do it. This is how I did it. And all my clients do it in different orders. That's absolutely fine. And it makes it excuse proof. You do it as soon as you can do it. Like, don't say, oh, I'm going to do it after I get this book. I just need to get a few more things lined up and then I'm going to do it, because they're not going to work to your perfect schedule. Opportunities are not immortal, that's for sure. And so, back in literally 2013, 2014, when I was still kind of on the tail end of, I was teaching and coaching on crutches and a college. And I started sharing for the first time, the story of basically the pole vault and what I'd gone through to my students. And that's when I and that had a good impact just in that small classroom. Like, that's when the thought, okay, maybe I could share this to others outside of the classroom, I'll be that, that motivational professional speaker type vibe. And so I tried certain things, and, you know, no one would want to interview me like this. No one would want to, you know, book me to speak on their stages. And that's as well. In that period, I discovered TEDx talks from a colleague and we started watching them in classes. I know a lot of teachers and educators do, because they are very impactful. And it's like, it's great to hear from someone else's perspective who's also an expert in that specific field. And that's when I was like, oh, light bulb, that's what I'm going to do. And I didn't, again, I'm a big fan, as I kind of hope, so that's what I'm going to do. I'll work out the details. So it wasn't a question if I was going to be a TEDx speaker. And I encourage others, if you want to be one, not like, oh, maybe I'll do it one day, or, oh, that'd be nice. Well, that's not going to happen. You know, if you want to do it, I'm going to be a TEDx speaker, and then you work out how you are going to do it, which is, you know, different for everyone. And there's obviously people, not just me, who can help you with that. So, and that's up to you whether you want help. It's just ultimately if you can get on that stage. So it took me about 3 years to get there, like finding out majority of ways that are not that effective. But the thing I had going for me is the relentless nature of, yeah, I'm going to get there. So yeah, so now it takes my clients roughly 3 months to get on that TEDx stage. And I know the value in shortening that curve, and not just shortening that time span, the certainty of, we can do this, you know, because, you know, people take a few knocks and then again, they're ready to go, well, I tried. I can just stop now, I guess. No, it's like, if you want to do this, we can anticipate that there's going to be a few challenges. You know, of course, there's going to be challenges. That's anticipated. You know, you might get it sooner than we expected, and that happens. I'm like, well, brilliant. We were prepared for a few more challenges. This worked out. There's going to be other challenges, you know. So, and I've been there, or my clients have been there, seen it. I've got a partner podcast literally called the Talk Accelerator, as you can see up there, how to get a TEDx.
I was just about to mention
where I interviewed TEDx speakers and organizers only about their TEDx journey and what it took to get there, and positives, negatives, what they did well, what they did badly. And that's, you know, so I've heard a lot, and I know what works well and what doesn't work so well. But I also know that almost every speaker had something that goes wrong, and so you know something's gonna, you know, don't beat yourself up a bit, but also be prepared.
I was just about to mention that, because I wanted to tell you that idea was brilliant, right?
Oh,
and actually, so the way that you explain this is that, because I've heard you speak about this before, that's where my explanation is coming from. You're like, you know, I wanted to kind of create like case studies for my clients, and I wanted to find out more information about getting on TED for my clients. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to start a podcast, interview organizers, interview speakers. My clients are going to get all this information. I'm going to get information like to create my programs. Like, I'm going to actually get real life case study. And I just heard you say the same thing about your book, about when you started the podcast. Like, no, these are case studies. It's like, I want to talk to people. I'm creating a platform for them to do, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. And people should steal this idea. If you want to,
I think you can do that,
right?
in all sorts of businesses, because it was like, okay, I'm trying to create the most efficient and effective way to help, you know, entrepreneurs, coaches, speakers, authors get their message on the TEDx stage, and then do the best job they can, so they don't feel like me, like I need to do it again because I didn't know what I didn't know. And also, 3 years, you know, a lot of people are going to fall by the wayside, or they may never make it. Like, I speak to so many people in my idea clarity calls I do for people, and they're like, how long do you want to do a TEDx? 6, 7 years is common. I'm like, what have you done to it? And sometimes nothing. Sometimes people have, I applied 2 years ago, or I've applied, almost like that they can leave it now, because they like, it's not about quantity necessarily, it's about quality. And something like that, as I tell my clients, you either are a TEDx speaker or you're not. As nice as it is to work with me and we have good fun, like, I don't want to be ranked on, oh yeah, he's a great guy, that was fun. It's like, are you a TEDx speaker or are you not? And we can still have fun. So yeah, it's and at the end of the day, I was like, okay, like, who am I? What have I got? Oh, I'm a top podcaster. How can I use that in my own unique approach? Because I'm constantly telling people, what is your unique idea? Not just idea. And I challenge them to think in that sense. And so then on the flip side, okay, if I help people, you know, land their TEDx and coach them to give a good TEDx, that's not unique. There are others out there, I'm aware. Okay, so what is my unique spin on it? Okay, I'm a podcaster, and then the way I approached it, I call it my insider interviews, and the timing of that is just a competitive hack, and it's just different to what others do. Not saying better, but it is my approach.
I thought it was brilliant, and we're putting the link to that podcast, the Talk Accelerator podcast, right in the comments, so everybody can go check it out. Can you tell me, share with me, because I think we can all kind of piece together what are some like things that could go wrong or things that you need to prepare. Like, I think the obvious people can kind of figure out, but you on the inside track, I'd love to hear 3 things that you think potential speakers really have no idea about. It would surprise them to learn about the process on getting on TEDx, and organizers are dying for them to get on the ball with these 3 things because nobody's telling them this. What do you think would be those top 3 surprising things they need to know?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit there as well. And like you said, we're going to run out of time, but I have a full 45-minute on-demand webinar training. You don't have to you don't have to attend at a certain time. It's on demand. When you want to watch it, you can click into that. And free TEDx idea blueprint to fine tune your ideas you may have. So that will save us some time. The 3 main things, I mean, that mindset of, I initially had do great things, and I agree. Yes, do great things. That's your lifestyle. That's a given. You should be doing. The sort of people who are going after TEDx they're doing good things in the world. You should be, or probably it's not the platform for you. You're helping people. You're doing something that's making an impact, and you just want to amplify that impact. So that's the first thing. But along that, that's kind of that's the foundation. That's the given. That's anyone generally who's going after a TEDx. So that's not enough. But it's the mindset of not okay, I'll do good things and TEDx will find me. That doesn't happen. Behind the curtains, the reality is those who've got on the TEDx stage, the overwhelming majority have been proactive. I call it become the hunter, because they've had that kind of that relentless nature or that proactiveness to, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm not just going to think, oh, I've got some good ideas. No, I'm going to develop my idea. We can always, I'm a work in progress. You always work on it, but also I'm going to go out and find the events. So, and that mindset of I will become a TEDx speaker, and that commitment that is sometimes scary to make to yourself means if you don't, it's down to you. Take responsibility. So once you say that, it's not oh, it hasn't happened. It's you haven't made it happen. So the mindset of you don't have to be famous. You don't have to, oh, if I just had 1 million followers, then I'd get on TEDx. It's the reverse. Organizers want to find that best kept secret that I'm assuming me, we are not internationally known. So if they can discover someone like that, but you have to do the work, because the organizers are volunteers, I should say. So they're not going to be scouring, extensively looking for you. So that mindset is that kind of that TEDx hack, that it is a process. There are steps. We all have our individual journey, but there's certain things, the work needs to be done. And that what stops most people is there's so many things you could do. As I did for that 3 years, I was doing all of them. So I wasn't shy of work, but how do you know what's effective? And how do you know what's actually moving the needle and getting you closer to the stage? And then also when life pops up, you have to kind of down tools on that and actually do your job or your work or, some family. And then you're like, okay, right, I'm going to start again, trying to get TEDx, do all the same things again. Whereas I offer a logical step-by-step process. So when you do have to down tools, as it will happen, you come back and then it's okay, I'm on step 4 out of 10. Let's pick up where I am. And accountability is huge. So number one, the mindset, and that it's hackable. And I say that in a positive way, that the people with the good ideas who feel that strongly about their ideas, like podcasters, authors, it's just another platform. So this is what you got to do to get it on that platform. Number 2, idea development. I touched on it there. It's a misconception to think you just wake up one morning oh, ping, that's the TEDx idea. There, I was waiting for that. Again, linked to what I said. You need to work on that. There's certain questions and challenges we can all do to develop our ideas for the TEDx platform, the TEDx stage, which is important because there is a certain style and there is a certain ideas that suit the TEDx stage better than others. So you might have 3 great ideas. 2 of them could be not the best for TEDx. It doesn't mean they're bad ideas. They're just not the ones that you're going to share on TEDx. And you only need to really share more powerfully one idea on that TEDx stage. Yes, your talk is going to be more detailed and you share other variations and other pieces of that idea, but you need to be very clear on that idea, which comes from work. So idea development is huge. So I mentioned the idea, blueprint. It's a PDF that I share out. because that's almost like a checklist. And if you be brutally honest with yourself, whatever idea you got now, go through that. And if it doesn't hit all the points, then it needs work. Doesn't mean it's a bad idea. It just is earlier in its development. And a lot of times people just leave it there, or that's what they might pitch against someone who's actually, I'm going to work on this, then I'm going to reply. So that's kind of number 2. And then number 3, the third thing is about not all TEDx events are created equal. You don't want to speak at all of them. They definitely don't all want you at their TEDx event. So again, don't just be like, oh, I want to speak on TEDx. Like, you have to be specific to events where you are genuinely the right fit. And for certain reasons, there's certain things to go through. Yeah. And so that's, again, just, fear comes from lack of knowledge. So these are things you need to find out, or you need to, speak to someone who knows these things. You need to research this. You need to do the work. And again, the organizer linked to that needs to be like, this is their event. They are picking a handful of speakers who are applying to them, usually way more than they can fit on there. And they're trying to get the mix. So they're like, okay, this might be a great idea. Why do you want to speak on my stage? What's the link? What's the connection? Because the X in TEDx just means a locally, independently run TED event, basically. So it's not always ideas, like local ideas, but a lot of times there needs to be a link to the area. And this call comes into the research to kind of not waste your time on applying to certain events, and really make the effort to apply to certain events. Because, and I touched on the insider interview. So, I'm not one for saying, oh, apply to 100 events. Yeah, that would increase your chances, but it's more like that's more like a spattergun approach. See what sticks, which I know some people sort of do that. Mine's more targeted and focused because, yeah, it's, if you have applied a lot of times, it's human nature that's going to really dent your motivation and resiliency. It's like, okay, if I, then the 3-month thing I think is important, because when you start this process, the longer it goes on before you secure it, same thing. You're going to have to be more resilient, and like, how bad do you want this? But if we can do the right things, get that momentum in the, first 3 to 6 months and land it, and that's realistically the sort of timelines, then all's good. And that's the other thing, realistic timelines for anyone listening in, with or without help. If you genuinely decide, right, I'm going to be a TEDx speaker, it should be within the next year. There's no reason it can't be. The only reason it goes beyond that is if you're not doing the right things, or you're not doing the things in the right order. Something's off. And again, if you want to stretch it out for years, that's your call. But it's that tomorrow attitude that I like to help people with, because it's very common. If you want to do a TEDx, it's like, I'd like to do it one day. I hear that a lot. And, that day will never come, potentially, if you keep that attitude. So it is definitely a mindset.
Number 1, mindset. Number 2, work your idea. Number 3, learn and work the process. Be intentional about this.
Yeah, so I'd say the mindset process, the idea development, and then the idea checklist, not the idea, I always say that mixed up. The process. The event checklist and research is important. These are, 3 key things. Yeah.
Awesome. So Adam, you have been very generous with your time and your tips. Can you tell us, what do you think is the biggest misconception that people have of you as a successful business person?
I mean, listening to this interview, you wouldn't think it, and I'm sure a lot of people get this. It's okay for you. Look how well things are going. It's very easy to assume other people's stuff is all shiny. I don't know why everyone, and like literally people tell me, oh, it's all going so well. I'm like, what? You haven't been seeing what I've been doing this last, like, that is not the reality. Like we spoke about, it's I think once you embrace the lifestyle and the process of that, and you know the ups and downs are coming, and yeah, there are some cool highs, like when I spoke and you saw that, that's the cool stuff, but that's a very small proportion, and it's not for everyone. But that definitely, I think, to sum up the misconception, this experience I had when my book came out in 2018, I'm in a little small town up here now, in northern Michigan. Someone I knew pretty well said to me, "Oh, you got a bestseller?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they were like, "Oh, well, you're set now. What are you going to do?" And I was like, I was just amazed. This was this wasn't said in joke. I was like, what are you? I just gobsmacked. To if you have a bestseller, in some people's eyes, especially if they're not entrepreneurial or they're not really paying attention, just someone who works locally, in their minds, you're sitting with your feet up as these books just sell millions and you're just collecting and I'm like, oh my goodness. And it's just a different perspective that I sometimes forget, because it's almost like in entrepreneurial circles, it's known that when you write a book, you're not going to directly make much money off the book unless you are that unicorn, like one of my favorite authors, Robert Greene, who sells millions. And you can't, I believe you can't go into it expecting that, because then you'll be disappointed. Hey, it may happen. Awesome. Still, that would be brilliant. That's still on my radar, but you got to work towards that. I'm not expecting, when I write a book, we have millions of people waiting to pre-buy it. He's been writing books for 20, 30 years. And I thought it was inspirational listening to him when I interviewed him a few times. The 48 Laws of Power, which is a crazy successful book now, didn't have really any traction in the first 2 years, like nothing. So again, I think it's that misconception that once you do these things, then you're set.
So if everybody who's listening had to do what you're about to tell them to do, and they have to do it in the next 24 hours, what would that thing be?
Just stop, take stock. If you say you got no time, get up an hour earlier tomorrow, or not tomorrow, I hate the word tomorrow, do it today, but in the next 24 hours, and just stop and take stock of all and everything it is you're doing. Ikigai, the Japanese principle, that is I have an exercise in my book towards the end of the book, and it's that combination of, as you see the overlapping circles of, what you love to do, what the world needs, what you can be, paid for well, and making an impact.
Thank you so much for this time, for being so generous with it. Please tell everybody where to follow you, where to find you. What do you want them to do?
Okay. Adam Lewis Walker across most social platforms. Amplify Your Mission is the top 1% podcast, been going for 8 years. Formerly Awaken Your Alpha, if that confuses you. That's the authors, coaches, and speakers. That's aymission.com, and all the resources are there. That's pretty much it. Do connect. We have a Facebook group for people who listen to the show and read the books. Just reach out to me and do leave me a review. I shout out, I read all my reviews on the air if you want to be on that podcast, for sure.
That's very cool. Thank you so much, Adam. You're the best. We're going to go follow you, and all the links are below. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Appreciate your time today, guys.